Welcome to Mount Hood Community College, Dan. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, where you're from.
My name's Dan Pillars. I'm an artist. The stuff that's in the gallery is what I do. I'm originally from Spokane, but that's been a long time ago. I lived in Portland for the 80s, San Francisco for the 90s, moved back to Portland in 2007. So that's where I'm from. Yeah.
When did you first start working with the medium that we see here today?
The medium that you see here, as in just found objects or the woodworking stuff?
Let me rephrase.
Okay.
What inspired you to create this entire exhibit that we have here today?
Oh boy, that's a big question, because there's a lot of inspiration here, because this show spans 40 years. So there's 40 years worth of life and living. The use of the found objects that I've been doing, I don't remember not doing that. When I was a little kid, my grandmother presented us with, egg cartons and old magazines and that kind of stuff, and encouraged us to make crafts and little art projects. And that sort of got into my blood, and it translated into this, quite a few years later.
Wow. Where do you source your materials? Where do you find your materials?
Yeah. Well, I find my materials pretty much anywhere and everywhere that I can. I visit almost all the junk shops, all the Reclaim It, the Restore, all those different places like that. But I'm also looking at garage sales. It's hard for me to pass by a free box on the side of the road without stopping and looking at it. And if I'm driving by a dumpster and there's something that looks pretty, I've been known to pull over and go jump inside and say, "Oh, look what I found." So.
Are there any pieces here today that have a story like that?
Oh, virtually all of them have an element of that in it. When I find an object, or find let's say a broken chair that I might find on the side of the road, what I do is, the first thing I do when I get it into my studio is I totally deconstruct it. I take it completely apart. So I'm saving all the spindles and the arms and the screws and any kind of brackets that might be there. Those all get totally deconstructed, and then that material gets sorted into raw materials that in turn is what I use to create these pieces. So it's yeah.
So creative recycling seems just like it's always been in your blood, from what I hear.
Yeah, that's true.
And a lot of these pieces are also about the relationships that you've had over the years.
Yeah, my work, when I was putting together this show, I wanted to sort of do a span of time. And as I was putting together the show, it really sort of highlighted to just me that this story that's being told is one that I've been telling for 40 years. So I draw from my own personal life experiences. I draw from my memories, my emotions, my political opinions, my social opinions. All of those come into play in my work. And the use of the salvage materials, or the recycled materials and stuff, to me, one of the fabulous things about it is it adds a sense of history, and it also brings the spirit of whatever that object was into play, at least for me. So, I'm imagining that there's perhaps an old table leg here. So the spirit of a Thanksgiving dinner at somebody's house is here, that sort of thing. And Yeah.
When you mentioned that you went to put this together and you were like, wow, this is 40 years of my life. When you first started, the oldest piece that's here that you chose for it, did you make it during that time, and did you have any vision of where it might end up?
The oldest piece that's here, which has got an interesting story to it itself. At the time, I was just drawing, and it's a drawing. It's a drawing of the male nude, the backside, and that piece. When I was talking to my mom, she's 96 years old, and I was talking to her about this show, and kind of what I was doing, and she said, "You're going to show the piece with the back, that guy's back," and I'm like, "Oh, you like that piece?" She says, "Yes," and so I had to include that piece in. But when I look at the pieces over time, at the time I wasn't necessarily conscious of it, but as you look back in retrospect, you see how they interrelate and how the story's been continued to be told. And this is a story of everything from coming out to living through the AIDS crisis to current stuff.
So you mentioned that your mother is still alive.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
What pieces here were inspired by the time when you came out to her, or did she always know?
Well, the interesting piece, the piece that she likes so much is one of those that I think is that. It's one of those, coming out is such a, it's hard to say whether somebody's always known or whatever. When I came out to my parents, to my family, they were kind of shocked. They didn't like the idea. They weren't too keen on it. They have religious beliefs that made it difficult for them to sort out. But over the years, it's like, yeah, they're like, yeah, we always knew. I remember when I was a little kid, it was just, I was a big old sissy kid, and I didn't have any problem with being a sissy kid, other than other people's problems with it, So, but the process of it's a long process. One of the things my mom said to me at one point, after we'd had some problems and we sorted through them, and then we had the problems and then we sorted through them again. But one thing she said to me, she says, what people don't understand is that as a parent of a gay person, the gay person has had their entire life to sort of sort out their own emotions and stuff and get to this point where they finally speak up and say who they are. At that moment, the parent has to begin their own coming out process as the parent of a gay person. And like for my mom, that meant she had to sort of figure out how she talks to her people in her church, her neighbors, her, acknowledge, and how to, still have her beliefs, but also, go to bat for her son. So.
That's an incredible story. Some of the pieces here, your body of work is stunning. First of all,
Thank you.
Let me just say that. It's amazing. And some of the pieces made me personally really think. For example, over here we have the shower with
it's a carpet batting suit.
Yeah, and
yeah.
I wasn't around for that, obviously.
Right.
But that seems pretty realistic according to what I have seen in the movies.
Right. Well, I wasn't around for it either, but it's how it's basically how I visualize, and from my research, I do a lot of research on my work. I go down the rabbit hole. You know, I get online and go down the rabbit hole of discovery as I'm going through, looking at my, you know, particularly certain topics. So I want to know as much as I can about it. And that helps me sort of set a mood. It helps me feel that mood while I'm creating it. Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of my creative process, is actually really feeling what I'm doing. I mean, there's times I'm in my studio just dancing around having a great time, and there's other times in my studio I'm just as somber as can be, but it's just because that's what the mood of the piece needs to be. So it's, but there's something about the creative process that always feels content while I'm doing it. But that particular suit, I found the carpet batting. You know, that's that old, goes underneath the carpet, and I thought, you know, it just felt like this really great material. The suit itself was, when it was created, fit me. It no longer does. I put on a little weight, and that was actually part of a performance piece I did. That, you know, and that's sort of the remnants of that performance piece. And the performance piece was all about name calling, and where that can lead. So.
You have a binder.
Yes.
Which has some very powerful images and words in it. The pictures, especially of your friends that are no longer with us.
Right.
Could you talk about the inspiration behind that, other than the obvious?
Well, the images are, I refer to that series of images as the scrapbook series. They're images from my personal scrapbook of group shots of myself and my friends doing things together, ski trips, playing softball, going down to Gay Pride in San Francisco, a variety of different things like that. And, you know, I lost over 300 people to AIDS. So that's a lot to process in basically a decade, over the course of a decade. And when that all started happening, prior to that I was a pretty avid scrapbook keeper. And after that started happening, it was harder and harder for me to keep that scrapbook. But I would look at these photos, and what I would see was people missing. The actual sort of inspiration that came to create it in the way that I did, you know, where I've blacked out the people who are no longer around, came from a conversation I had with my father back in the 80s. My parents had come to visit, and I thought, you know, there's no way that he can relate to what I'm going through right now. And he came, and I had on my coffee table, I had a coffee table book by the photographer Weegee. He's a journalist that was a photographer during the 30s up through the 60s, I believe. And my dad was looking through looking through this coffee table book, and came across an image of Coney Island that was packed shoulder to shoulder people. And what he said was really striking to me. He looks at it and he said, "I wonder how many of those men survived the war." And at that moment I realized that yes, he could relate. A different thing, but yes, you know. And so when he said that, in my mind's eye, I visualized all those images just blacked out. And a few years later, this piece came about. But,
wow. So art, I imagine, is a passion, as I can see. Did you make your career as an artist, or how did How did you fund all of this?
Well, I've been creating art as long as I can remember. I honestly don't remember not making art. And it is definitely a passion, but it's, I wish I could say I made a career out of it, but art's a hard sell. It's just a hard sell. And particularly art that is loaded as mine is. It's a hard sell. I waited tables and bartended, and for a while I had my own gardening business. So I had found ways jobs that allowed me the freedom to create, and the flexibility that I felt I needed for my creative output. But I've always made time for making art. But you got to have bread and butter. I have a hard time making the other friends of mine, they call their bread and butter pieces. Smaller pieces of art that they can sell and helps fund their other stuff. Whenever I try doing that, I walk away feeling disappointed. So I just prefer to go where my passion is, and that's make stuff that has a statement.
How did you come to be here at Mount Hood?
I know Richard Kutzall, who was one of the staff members here, and he had a show here 5 years ago, 6 years ago, something like that. It's been a while. And I heard that his show was coming out here, and I came out to check out his stuff. And I saw his stuff, which was wonderful, but what I really saw was this gallery. I thought, oh, this is an amazing gallery, and this is a wonderful space. And this particular show is, in a lot of ways, is a dream show for me. It's one that I've sort of wanted to do for a long time. And this gallery allowed me the space to do it. And so I ended up ultimately just applying, and you had to go through that little process, and voila, they picked me, and I said, yay.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Do you think your mother will be able to come see it?
No, I don't think my mom will be able to come see it. I would love for her to be able to, but it's harder for her to travel these days. So,
Yeah. There are other people in this book that are not blacked out.
yes.
Do you think they will come see it?
Well, that book was created in the mid-90s. If I were to black it out today, it would be even more. Some of them might, yes. Yeah, some of them might. It's living through the 80s and into the 90s, living through the height of the AIDS crisis was you had to just do your absolute best to survive. It was crazy. You partied, so you didn't feel. You felt. There was a period of time where, like every week was somebody's funeral. And that's where you saw your friends. Today, most of that community's gone. The friends that I do have that were from that time, I love them dearly, and I'm really glad they're still around. Although, interestingly enough, some of us, we have a hard time speaking to each other because we went through hell. And when we see each other, it reminds us of that. So, but also, we're very happy to see each other, say, oh, yay, cool, you're still here, so.
Well, we're almost out of time. Before I let you go, is there something that you think I should have asked that I did not?
I can't, well, my process in making art. It involves a lot of humming and hawing, a lot of scratching my head. It also involves my dreams. It involves my just being my observations of the world around me. And it's a long process. Any given one of these pieces, if you really were to say from start to finish, how long did it take? You're going to be pushing on 6 or 7 months. Because sometimes it's finding that just that right object. For instance, the punching bag. When I found the punching bag, I picked it up and I knew exactly what it said to me. I knew exactly what it needed to, what it was saying. But then it took me a bit of time to sort of get to it. But once I get an idea, I turn everything over to my dreams. I literally dream these pieces in detail, and I know how to put them together before I actually start.
That's a whole other interview.
Yes.
Just so you know. Before I let you go, what do you want students to take home from your show?
Well, I think most importantly, I think for students, particularly art students that are in their creative process and have their own personal stories to tell, I think that I hope that this inspires people to tell their own stories, that they look within themselves and they create with their own voice, rather than regurgitating something that you've learned in art history class, or that you are trying to copy someone else's work, which those are really good things to do for a springboard. But develop your own language in your art and tell your story, your own personal story, in a way that allows people room to see their story within it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So this exhibit is happening through the end of January.
Yes, through the 30th.
How can people find you after that?
Well, I'm going to do a plug for the talk. I'm doing my artist talk on January 23rd, which is a Thursday at 1 o'clock. You can find my work on, I'm on Instagram at Dan Pillers, and that's Pillers. I also have my website, danpillers.com. You can follow stuff there. I show around. I will be having a show at Guardino Gallery in April. So I'm currently working on that body of work. So.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for being here today.
You're welcome. Thank you.